Didn't expect that introduction. So, hi guys, hi everybody. Volleyball Rules Clinic. I know Nora's sitting up here laughing too. We're going, okay, that was a little bit different, but good job, Nate, with that. So, anyway, welcome to the District Volleyball Rules Clinic. Here we are again. There are some updates that I want to discuss with you as to difference that has been in the fall. We are at this point, as of today, at 4:30. We are planning to start volleyball and hoping to have a good season. I know a lot of you are apprehensive, got the guard up a little bit just in case the governor decides to pull the plug. All of that, all of those emotions that are going through your head. I'm here to tell you that we did receive guidance from the governor's office and the PED. We got some documents last night. There are a few changes, but with us getting documents from the governor's office allows us to know, at least it allows me to know and you to know that they are aware that we are playing. They have given us documents, and if we follow these guidance, I'm assuming we're ready to go. We need to make sure that our case counts stay low. That is a key. And so I will also discuss with you some things I think you need to do as coaches to help in the community. This is going to take a community-wide effort. It just cannot happen at your school. It's going to happen in the community as well. So for us to be able to start, and then once we start, how we're going to finish. And so Tammy will share the screen. I'll probably, since Tammy has the controls, I think I'll just say, Tammy, next slide, but she'll know when to go to the next slide. So again, welcome to the Volleyball Rules Clinic. And I am looking at that picture, and that picture, Tammy, if you can do to start it, so we're not looking at the side slides. There you go. As I look at that picture, it brings me joy as to what we did accomplish last year and last season in the 1920 school year, and what a great environment that was in the double elimination tournament that we did have. And we are looking to go back to that in 21-22. So don't think that this is the way that we're going to work out this year is going to stay. We're very hopeful that you will see this for next year. So on to the next slide, Tammy, that we have here. We've gone through these COVID guidelines. Today, we just released the last COVID guidelines sent over from the governor's office, from the public education department, and from the NMAA. Those are on our website, and your athletic director just received them probably within the last hour. I had a meeting with them at 1 o'clock. And so, yes, some of these guidelines you will see on that document. And I suggest you get that document because not only do we have the COVID safe guidelines, we also have the volleyball game guidelines as well. So you can access that document even tonight on our website. You just need to go to the COVID-19 tab on the homepage, click that, and you will go down and you will see where it says the guidelines, COVID-19 guidelines. So as you know from last year that we will not have any tournaments, no overnight travel, no pool play, and that masks should be worn at all times by all individuals. Medical exemptions are not allowed per the governor's office and our NMAA Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. So with that being said, when you play, you will see in the guidelines, it says that you cannot have back-to-back games, consecutive days. They took that wording from us when we were explaining tournament play. So even though that says on the guidelines, back-to-back days, does not mean, for example, that Hobbs can play Artesia one day and then the next day they play Roswell. You can do that. You go home, it's just two different matches. The wording that they use, like I said, they took it from our original guidelines, and we did use that word consecutive days when we were talking about tournaments. Now, let's go with the mask wearing. 100% mask wearing. That is players, coaches, officials, ball shaggers, scorekeepers, everybody must be in a mask. And when I say no exceptions, there are no medical exceptions. And some people are going to say, well, that's pretty tough for those that can't wear a mask. What we have found from the medical teams that have looked at this, that if it is unsafe for them to wear a mask, then they should not be in a COVID environment playing sports. We need to protect those kids that cannot wear a mask, and they should not be put in an environment where there's sweat, where there's droplets, or anything like that. So it's not to penalize them. It is for safety. It's for safety of all. It's for safety of them that cannot wear a mask, and it's also for the safety of their teammates who will get droplets from that person not wearing a mask. So that includes the coaches as well. I know that's a tough thing for some people to sit out. We need to keep everybody safe first and foremost than anything else.
So you are a little choppy.
Can you guys hear me still right there?
Yep, you're there.
Yeah. Any questions on masks? All righty. So competition limits, there are 12 games, and I'm trying to move this cord to make sure it's not being pushed in any way and that it's secure. So 12 matches. That includes your sub-varsities as well, because since there's not any tournament, you should be traveling together. And then the middle and junior high, that would be 10 matches. So you are at 12. Now the question would be, I know that's going to come up, and the question is those club kids, now that the quarantine is not there, they still must stay within 12 matches. So if you want to have the club kids, they're going to go to a tournament and they are playing 4 games, then you need to take away 4 of their matches from your 12, just like we do in every season. Take 4 games away from their matches and they can only play 8 with you. And that's prior to the last week of the season. We are hoping that when I say the last week of the season, and I may be jumping in some of these, that we might be talking about this later in these slides, but when I say the last week of the season, we are hopeful that we are able to have a culminating event. However, when you look at the governor's guidelines, it says that you must play your matches in your own region. So I have asked that could we have a culminating event where you're playing games outside your region, teams outside your regions, and if we have to do a neutral site, that we would do a neutral site. And they said that they will get back with me after the season starts progressing. So I am hopeful that we will have something at the end of that last week, but that is still out for a governor's approval. Pool play and tournaments are not permitted, so there are single matches only that you're going to do. And we've talked about no overnight stay. And I just made that comment that you need to find matches in your region. Now, I said if not, use a neutral site. We need to, in the sport of volleyball, we need to find matches in your region. We will not be using a neutral site for volleyball. In the athletic directors meeting that we had this discussion, in the indoor sports, if somebody from your team, let's say, for example, let me give you an example. Let's say that Las Cruces is going to play Hobbs and they have chosen to play in Ruidoso because that's a neutral site and it wouldn't be far travel for either of them. If one of the kids from Las Cruces gets COVID and has been at that neutral site, the indoor site, the site that they were at, would have to shut down for 72 hours and clean. And that's on the indoor site. So it's going to be very difficult to use a neutral site and open that concern up for the school that you are using. If something happens, that school would have to shut down also for 3 days and sanitize. So that's only on indoor sites and gyms. That's not like at a football field or outside. So in the sport of volleyball, we will not be using neutral sites. So you need to make sure that your schedule, and your ADs are aware of this, that it needs to be schools in your region where you're not traveling very far whatsoever. If you have questions on the travel, just you can call me or your athletic director can call me. But you should be playing with only 12 matches. A lot of them are going to be your district games anyway. Okay. Next slide, Tammy. Pre-match conference. We talked about this in the last thing. Nothing has changed in the pre-match conference from the fall. The one thing that has changed is the team benches. So when I talk about the team benches, you can sit on the bench. You do not have to stand, but the chairs must be 6 feet apart. And I don't know if anybody ever seen the college games or NBA games, and sometimes they're like 3 rows of people because the benches, you can't do 6 feet and have all those kids on the bench. So you may be 2 or 3 deep, or for some of you, you may be sitting in the stands. If you pull the bleachers out and the bleachers behind you, you might have some team members sitting in those bleachers, but they have to be 6 feet apart. Now, when you're also on the bench, you need to designate a place for those kids that is where they're going to sit the whole entire match when they come in and out. And reason for that is we do not want to cross-contaminate them sitting on different people's sweat. You've got to keep them social distance. So make sure that you know where they know where they're going to sit, and make sure that the area right there they're all separated. So questions on the bench before we go, because that is different than what we talked about in the fall.
Sally, could you have,
go ahead, Cassie.
Could you have like, so let's say, you know, like your libero and your middles are always switching out. So at our gym, I've already like spaced it out, and we have like enough for 7 chairs. But if there's the situation where 2 kids are always switching out for each other, can they share that one seat, and those are the only 2, and they disinfect in between them rotating in and out? Can we do something along those lines? No?
No, if they're going in and out, then stand them up.
Okay, perfect.
You know what I'm saying? Just stand them on the side like we were standing before, stand them up. But they should not be sharing, a seat whatsoever. Now, guys, let me go back to benches, and this is up to you. To the social emotional well-being of kids. And when I'm saying that, I keep saying my internet is unstable.
Sally,
This year, if I was a coach, this year, if I was a coach, let me sit here. Let me see here. Can you hear me now?
Sally, do you want the number to call it in?
You got me now?
Yeah.
No, I'm hooked in remotely. I think it's just this plug is coming out. Can you hear me if I hold this plug? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Or am I in and out?
No, you're in.
Okay, I'm gonna just hold this plug. I think that's what's going on. With COVID, and like I said, I may be jumping ahead to some of these other slides, but it fits perfectly in here. This is a year, if I was a coach, that I would not have floaters. I would not have your JV team sitting on the varsity bench and not even playing and just sitting there. Because if you have floaters and you are mixing practices, if one of those kids has COVID, you have just shut down 2 teams. You have shut down your JV team, you have shut down your varsity team. So if one of those floaters who plays more on the JV comes up with COVID and you are back and forth, you don't have a varsity team anymore to play because you will be shut down as well. So you probably need to think about, and I'm not saying you have to, we have the 14 player limit, that's still in place, but you need to think about these kids that float, that you just sit on the bench because you want to give them the experience. This is not the year to give them the experience. You need to think about separating them. And that's just words of wisdom that I'm giving you. But again, it's up to you because it's happened in the other states where a whole 2 or 3 teams have to shut down because a coach has mixed practices and mixed them all the whole time. I would too separate them on the bus. I would separate your varsity from your JV on the bus as well. You just need to make sure you're separating as much as you can, these kids. Okay.
Do those include managers as well as part of the 14?
Remember, you have that 20 that can be in the bench area, but again, that's for state. But any other, that's all up to you guys. The 14 that we have, that's when we say, okay, you're getting down to state, and some of the districts send them down to 14. But that, again, that's up to you. But it's just thoughts. It's just, you have to think differently this year than you have before. All right, Cami, next.
Sorry, Sally, real quick before we get too far. If there's a positive case in the JV, what's the next step? Have varsity get tested?
Well, that would be
You're cutting out again.
the here. Okay, let's try this. So you will follow all the school's guidelines. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. Or do you want officials to allow teams to stand? Of course, that's recognizing they got to be 6 feet apart, the players.
They have to be 6 feet apart. So I think officials can be, depends on the court also too. How are the benches going to be? What do they need to do? But yes, they can stand if that's what the school wants them to do.
Okay.
All of these are not any different as far as the guidelines are concerned. Deciding sets, substitution, officials table. This is exactly what we've talked about with this. And we're not changing sides. So this is not anything different than what we talked about in the fall. Now, volleyball sanitation, same thing, 3-ball rotation, making sure you're sanitizing the balls at all times as they're going in and out. Equipment, especially with the kids' sweats, make sure that you have a basket or they have their own little area where they put their sweats. You're not mixing clothes at all whatsoever. You're social distancing all times, team huddles, timeouts, injury, you are always social distancing. And I know they're playing close together on the floor, but you still need to social distance. The more that they're apart, the better that you will be. Okay, this is a change. Long sleeves are not mandated. And I know some of you have put money into long sleeves. They're not mandated. I suggest that it happens. Why they were mandated in the fall is because that was from the governor's office and to get volleyball going. But now with all the guidelines that have come in place, that has been relaxed a little bit. But again, I think it's a good idea. If you have them, I would wear long sleeves. But that's up to you. It is not mandated. Officials' uniforms, officials will be in masks at all times. And their whistle they will not move their mask to do their whistle. They'll either use an electronic whistle or they'll have a whistle underneath their mask. And Nate, can you explain the whistle underneath the mask? Because I think that people don't understand that you can do that.
And Sally, I'm going to cut Nate off real quick. For volleyball, we did agree as a group that everybody will use electronic whistles in the sport of volleyball. So they won't even have to worry about, they don't even have to worry about putting them under their mask. They're just doing electronic. Sorry.
All righty. Well, there you go.
All right. So that's even easier.
There you go. News to me. Awesome.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Dana.
You bet.
Any questions on that slide? Oh,
So Sally, real quick, before we get ahead, before you start on dates, there was a question about, sorry, I lost my, can we sanitize balls with disinfecting lights? And you cut out.
all righty.
Okay,
There you are, Sally. So there was a question about using disinfecting lights to sanitize balls. Is that okay? Oh, I think we dropped her completely. So
okay, we're gonna go, in the interest of time, when she pops back on, Nate, will you just interject when she's able to answer that question?
yep, and a lot of these questions she will cover. So if you guys want to hold those to the end, so we can make sure we get through everything, and then we'll answer some of these questions or ask some of these questions.
Okay, and when Sally gets on, if she catches anything that has changed since we finalized this at the end of last week, rolling into today, we'll make those adjustments. And before I send this out electronically and post it on our volleyball page, I'll make sure that the updates are there as well. So as you all know, the first.
Oh, she might be back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm remoted in. I just shoved the things back in and out. So hopefully that works, but I apologize for that. We're talking about the sanitation of balls. The only thing with the wipes, you got to make sure that they're not wet going back in. So I would use a towel and wipe them down. If you can get them, if you use those wipes and you get a towel, and make sure they're dry before you throw them back into play. Okay. There is a little bit of changes that happened last night with this calendar. So our first official start date is February 22nd. For those that have been in hybrid beginning February 8th, you are ready to go fully on February 22nd for practice. So you can open up and you can participate just like you normally would have a normal practice. If you have been in hybrid, if you got in hybrid on this week on the 15th, or you're going to get in hybrid on the 22nd, the new thing that has just come out, when you are in your 14-day period for games, you have to be in for 14 days before competition. So most of you would be like March 1st would be your first day of competition for those of you. If let's say you got in on the 22nd, you have 14 days that you have before you can start competition. The change is this: during those 14 days, you must remain in your pods for practice. Okay, so it is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to or what you thought. That came down from the governor's office yesterday. So the question already popped up. Give me a break here, guys, just a little bit. How are you going to prepare for games? It's going to be very difficult. So you might need to think, instead of playing right at 14 days, playing a game right at the 14th day, that maybe you play it on the 17th or the 18th day so that you can have a few days of opening up, playing a full type practice before you get into a game situation. So you need to make that determination how you're going to do it. I know it's not ideal. I know, guys, you have to think back. This is a different year. You're not going to put at the beginning your best person, best team on the floor, or I'm not saying that way, the best foot forward. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, but it's not going to be ideal where you're playing your best volleyball at the beginning, because you are restricted when it comes to practices if you have not been in hybrid beginning on February 8th. So during that time, you're going to need to be in pods. I have requested that we open the pods to 9-1, 11-1 for football. I requested that. So if that is the case, then that would help you when it comes to getting a little bit more prepared. But I have not received a favorable response on that request as of right now, as of this meeting. So that is a huge change. That's very disappointing, I know, for coaches. But again, you've got to think back on how can I prepare? How can I be creative? And when you're looking at your schedule, what's the best schedule that I can do for what I'm able to do with my kids? So any questions on this new wrinkle that happened last night and this morning?
I have a question, Sally.
Yes, Heather.
So I guess, not everybody's in the same boat, and that kind of seems like unequitable to me, that there's some teams that get to start practicing 3 to 4 weeks before everybody else. But my bigger issue is if my first match isn't scheduled till March 8th, and I can't even practice till March 8th with a team, and I only have 3 weeks to get games in, does that mean that my season is essentially cut in half in terms of matches that I'm going to be able to play?
I think that's between you and your athletic director. How many matches can you play, and what are they going to allow you to play? But yes, some are going to be able to play 12. Some are going to be able to open up practice sooner. Some are not. Some are just trying to get in the last 2 weeks of the season just so they can play some volleyball, not expecting anything. And so again, with this, athletic directors have thought about, everybody's thinking about the trophy and how am I going to get to state? And maybe we pull that last week of the season and not even think about it, because that's where that's the first thought that everybody's going to say is seating and selection. How am I going to get ready? How am I going to get to state? That's the first thought that comes in every single coach's mind. And so maybe it's best that we don't have a last culminating event. And we got to focus in on we're getting to play. And I know that's hard, and I'm competitive as all get out, but it is inequitable based on whether you're in hybrid or not in hybrid. I have 7 districts that schools the districts haven't decided whether they're going to even be able to get in or not. I'm still waiting word on them. Their boards are making decisions. And we have other schools that have been in since January. So, or even, smaller districts, some of them have been in since January, and a lot of districts have been in since February 8th. So no, it's not going to be equitable. That's all that's not going to be.
Well, this is just my opinion, but I'd rather have the last week for my seniors to get to play some games. And, I can't imagine that. I would barely be able to get a full district schedule in if we started, where we're supposed to start. So for me, I'd rather have that last week to play more matches so that my kids get to play more games.
And we have ability to pull people here too. We can talk about it, but the athletic directors are aware about trying to get your district games in and how are you going to do it. And so there's going to be some teams that are going to be playing 3 or 4 matches, could be in a week, to get their district games in. Also too, and your ADs are aware of this, our bylaws usually in volleyball, you guys usually play home and away for district games. You don't have to do that, but for this season, I think it'd be best that you do because those are people in your area and you want to be able to maximize the number of games. But this new rule wrinkle is going to be tough. However, I don't want to, I'm going to probably have to shift a calendar maybe in football, but I would rather not shift the calendar in volleyball because there's nothing that, you know, we would just get 1 week less. But it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But I will get more word whether we can open up the pods. I think if I can open up the pods to 11-1, and I know some of you are going to say, well, can we do 12-1? I'm trying to even get 9-1, and I was trying to go to 11-1 for football. So just trying to be able to open those up if we can.
Say, I think 9-1 would be fine for volleyball, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what I asked for. I did ask for 9. And anyway, too, I think, yeah, I think 9 would work. And that's because that's what you guys were working with in the fall anyway. So that's what I asked for this morning, and I'm trying to wait word from it. And what I used was our case counts are lower than they were in the fall, and we were at 9-1. So why can't we go back to 9-1? So I have asked for that. So we will see if we
Sally,
can.
can I get clarification on something? This is Kim.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have your 14 days in, if we started school on the 8th, is there a pod limit to our practices?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
so all right. So once you have those 14 days in, then you have no pod number restriction.
Correct.
Okay.
So the ones that are in on February 8th, their pod restrictions are gone on the 22nd, and they can start play on March 1st. For those that are got in this week on the 15th, their restrictions will be till March 1st, and then they can make a decision when they would like to begin play. Some of them may want to start on the 3rd, the 4th to get full practices, but they would be in pods until March 1st. So you need to work with your athletic director as to what is best for you when it comes to, you know, for your program. But a lot of you, I would say a lot of you got in on the 8th or are in this week. So it won't be too bad.
So if you started on the 8th, your first contest still cannot be till March 1st?
That's correct. They moved it to March 1st. Now, the reason I didn't argue, let me give you what I have to deal with. We were going to start on the 27th. Remember, 5 days of practice start on the 27th. They called me because the new CDC guidelines are really not in favor of indoor sports. And I argued that you cannot compare us to the CDC guidelines because we are mask wearing. So, you know, that's for no mask. So they said, well, you cannot start till March 1st. Not thinking, and me at the quick as I was at that point, February is a short month. So the difference between February 27th and March 1st is 2 days. So for me, it was not an argument that I needed to make with the governor's office. So I said, okay, we'll start March 1st. So that's how that came back. That was last week that they asked me to start March 1st. Okay. Any other questions on the practice limitations and pods? So March 1st.
Can they share a ball between the pods?
No, pods cannot mix. Okay, so we're not going back and forth. Pods cannot mix. So you're not having one pod on one side of the net and another pod on the other side of the net.
There was a question about medical masks. I've heard cloth, just wanting to double check.
Medical masks, well, they keep saying cloth masks, but a medical masks are fine.
Does the entire team have to complete the 14 days?
So if a kid misses practice, do they have to have 14 days? No, it's just the school and the team needs to be in for 14 days.
And you
Sally, yeah, sorry, I missed it. Can you explain why the fact that the school is hybrid for 14 makes it okay for them not to be in a pod and others have to be in a pod? What's the justification there as far as health?
Well, what's going on when it comes to you have to be in hybrid in order to open up, as far as a new rule, or is why do people that are in remote have to be in pods? Which one? Al, explain your question. So
Well, like, okay, we've been practicing in pods all this time, but our school is not back hybrid, right? But I don't see the correlation between your school being back hybrid. In other words, some kids going to classes and then a practice being any safer, allowing everyone to mix as opposed to keeping it really strict to a pod and not sharing. You know what I mean? Like, what's the
So
major?
the school guidelines are different than athletics. That is correct. Trying to make sense of the safeness of it. I
Right.
wouldn't analyze it, honestly. Those are the guidelines we are given to start.
It's just a stipulation, right? You're not allowed.
Correct. Yeah, it's those are the guidelines they gave us, and we need to work with them so we can play.
Okay.
So that basically is what
But
it is.
It has nothing to do with them being safer now that they're in hybrid to be able to mingle and practice.
Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to separate. Well, first off, they're doing two things. Youth sports cannot play in New Mexico. Okay, they're still, some of them are practicing going out of state, as you guys are aware, and all of that. We are coupled. The reason we get to start is because we are education, so we're coupled with the school. And so that is their justification for allowing us to play, but as UNM and New Mexico State still are not being able to play in here because they're not in the same thing. They're kind of separate. Their schools are remote and we're allowed to get back in.
Okay.
So they're trying to say, if you can get the kids in safely, then you can do athletics comes next. And so that's where the hybrid model coming in in order to play sports. That's why you have to be in hybrid, because that's their philosophy. They're getting kids in school. Yes,
Right.
If you analyze it, PE class is different than athletics. PE class is opened up a little bit more than the pods, but
No,
I can't even answer your question, really.
I guess what I'm saying is once you are back hybrid, so there you are, you're back hybrid. Why are we limited to 4? Why not just, okay, you're doing what we wanted you to do, now go play?
Well, the 14 days they wanted to do is to make sure that school, when they get back, case counts didn't rise.
Okay.
And so that's why that 14 days, because there could be a school that shuts down if they're not doing it correctly because they have an outbreak.
Okay.
So they wanted to make sure that the school was doing things safely before we went full blast.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So then you have your games. Now, week 6, I said subject to change. Again, the governors, and like I said, I can poll you guys with this new rule, whether you want to continue that last week or not, having a state championship. But the governor's office, again, has to approve whether we're going to be able to cross regions and do some type of culminating event. If we do, the quarters and semis will be at home sites. And the finals will either be at home sites or we have secured the pit in order to play the finals. So we're hoping that if we can have a culminating event, that we'd be able to get to the pit to play, but I'm not sure about that. So that is where we're at this point. Any questions with the calendar besides maybe we shouldn't have a culminating event?
Sally, there is a question about rosters. When do rosters need to be turned in? Also, will districts be redone if schools in our district are not playing?
Okay, so on the 15th, I just skipped over that. I'm sorry, on March 15th, rosters, schedules, and the coaches and everything needs to be on Max Preps. We are not mandating a picture because that's going to bringing somebody in off campus. You can put a picture on Max Preps especially if the picture is social distance or you want to do that at your school, that's fine, but it is not mandated to have that picture on Max Preps. And Nate, I missed the other part of that question.
Yep, it's, will the districts be redone if schools in our district are not playing?
Yes, that's why the schedule has not been finalized. I'm going to give the athletic directors, I don't know if tomorrow because I'm still waiting on a couple districts, but definitely on Friday. If we have to switch some districts, I'll let them know because there's some teams that are opting out. Okay, we talked about all of this. Everything, again, same thing goes where if you're going from sub-varsity to varsity, you get 5 games a night. You're going from C team to JV, you have 4 games. But I would highly suggest that you do not float kids if possible. I really would highly suggest that. But again, that's up to you as a coach to make that determination. We did talk about this already, that your club players, there's no quarantine. Now, the school district can be a little bit stricter. In the governor's orders, it is recommended that they quarantine or they get a negative COVID test. Your school may be one that says, you know what, if anybody leaves the state, we want a negative COVID test or they're going to quarantine. That's up to your school to decide. As far as we are concerned, since the quarantine rules have been lifted, they do not have to quarantine. However, any game they play must go against your match limitation. Somebody says, well, what about pool play? Well, if they're playing full matches, then those need to go against your match limitation. And you need to make sure that they're honest with you. I guess there's one tournament maybe I think that's in conflict that they may be going to, some of the club teams. But that's up to you how you want to handle that. Okay, next slide.
Sally, that was a repeat question. I think I missed it. If a student isn't in hybrid but wants to compete in sports, so they stay remote, can they still participate?
That is correct. They can. They can. Tammy, do you want to? I think that's all really kind of the COVID slides. I know I did a little bit more, but why don't you go ahead and finish and then we'll open it for questions.
Real quick, Sally, game limitations as far as club, does pool play, have you decided, is pool play going to count, all of that?
It depends on the tournament's pool play. Yeah, you guys, I think if you want me to answer that question, I would say all the matches count. I don't know how the club is doing pool play, if they're doing shortened games for pool play or if they're doing 2 out of 3. I'll tell you what, if they're doing best 2 out of 3, that those would count. So it depends on how they're doing pool play.
Pool play is just two sets in club.
And what is it to, what is it to though, Nora?
21.
Is it 21?
It's 21 points.
I guess we can opt that pool play wouldn't count, but the matches do count.
Well, that depends also on the tournament. Some tournaments do pool play 2 out of 3. So it depends on the level of the tournament. Okay, so like I said, any 2 out of 3 is going to count towards your match limitation. So you guys need to figure that out because I'm telling you, somebody will find out and let us know that somebody's over with their matches. So let us know on that one. So yeah, most club matches are 2 out of 3. That's what I thought with pool play or something.
No,
I don't know, Nora. Just
in Sun Country region, there are 2 sets. If somebody goes to a tournament in Arizona, Colorado, Texas, in some of those areas, in a larger tournament, those tournaments can decide they're going to have pool play be 2 out of 3.
Okay.
That's what Ricky's talking about.
So 2 out of 3 will be constitute a match.
It depends on which tournament you're going to.
Right. Okay. All righty.
And a fan question, Sally, are we going to allow fans?
If you see the governor's guidance that came out yesterday, right now it's no spectators. I have sent up a proposal to them last week. I have not heard back. So I'm still trying to work at it, but at this point, it is no spectators, and those are the guidance that came down last night from the governor's office. So you need to work with your athletic director about streaming. How would they stream those games? Okay, Tammy, take it on.
All right, Sally briefly mentioned in a previous slide the Max Preps information. We will be omitting the requirement for the photo. All of you should have access. If you are a new coach that was not prepared in the fall and we need to help you, set up your Max Preps account, please contact us and we will do so. All of you are aware of your coaching licensure requirements coordinated with your athletic directors. The fundamentals of coaching, your first aid course, and your concussion courses must be completed prior to being awarded your licensure. Those are kept on file with your PED license as well as at your building level with your athletic directors. Additionally, if you went through the concussion course with your players to prepare for participation in the fall, you should have those on file. If you have anybody who's floated in that is new and you redid your tryouts, please make sure that you have them go through the concussion and sports course, because that is a mandated requirement by law in the state of New Mexico. It's not an NMAA rule. It's under statute that was passed by the state legislature. So if you observe any of those concussion-like symptoms, etc., you should be very prepared to follow the rules, the 10-day, 240-hour rule, and follow all of the guidelines with the gradual return to play, etc. And it's been a weird year. We won't have spectators, so we need to make sure we protect the integrity of the game, that we allow them to have that joy for finally getting on the floor and competing and being around their peers in some kind of competitive environment. So please just make sure that we are all protecting that structured environment for them, because they've been longing for it for so long. So let's focus on what matters. It's not the blue trophy. It's getting the kids out there for, as Sally mentioned, the social, emotional part of the game. As we move forward, COVID-specific information will be handled by Sally. Sports-specific information will be handled by myself. You are certainly welcome to email us both, and if it's something that I know Sally needs to answer, I will forward it on to her, whether it's via email, text, or a phone call. We are all committed to doing everything that we can to make this work for our member schools. So I'm going to, if there are no other questions regarding that, I'm going to get a very brief update ready for Nora. Oops, I got
just that, Tammy, before we go forward, Nora, and I'm gonna hand it over to Nora here. I know we're running out of time, but the physicals, remember with physicals, you can use the 1920 physical. If the coaches, if you guys have had the parents, fill out that form and there has not been any injury, there is now a link that we will have. If any of your kids have had COVID, they're going to need to fill out this form and get it signed by the doctor that they are clear to participate. So there is a COVID form your athletic directors will be aware of, that it is just a return to play. And then there will be a progression. If somebody has COVID, we're going to have to do a progression to get them back in order to participate. They will not be able to turn around after so many days and just start playing. So there is a progression there. Okay. Okay, Tammy, I just didn't want to forget about physicals. So I guess it's Nora.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tammy, put me on. Next. Next slide. Okay, we've cut this down quite a bit so that you all don't have to, we can get it done hopefully 7 minutes. Okay, so as you all know, what we're going to go over is rule changes and a couple of editorial changes, and that'll be it. As you all know, players can wear a protective face mask. That's allowed, but it has to be made of a hard material free of protrusions and molded to their face. So you can see the player here, that's what they have. Next slide. Okay, roster submissions. This, if you get a roster submission in late, it's not going to matter now. Hang on one moment. Okay, got it. If you get a roster submission in late, the penalty is not going to be a loss of point anymore. From now on, it's going to be an unnecessary delay. Typically, you have to give your roster to the R1 or R2 in the coaches meeting. We're not going to do that anymore. Now you're going to turn it in for this year only, as Sally had stated before, directly to the scores table. But it still needs to be in the same amount of time, 10 minutes left with time remaining on the clock. So even though you don't have to hand it to us at the coaches meeting, you do have to hand it into the scores table. And yes, Shelley, no locker rooms are to be used. Okay, submitting a submitted lineup. This is one of the things, coaches, especially if you hand your lineup in fairly early, we can check this. And if we see that you have a number mentioned twice, or the libero, you have her down as number 1 and she's actually wearing 20 because she had a jersey on you weren't aware of, we're going to allow a change to be made on that because it's considered a clerical error and it'll be fixed without penalty. The key there again is get it into us as quickly as you can, and then we can hopefully find those things out. Next. Unsporting yellow card penalty. What this means now, it used to be last year, coaches, if you got a yellow card, for you or anyone on your bench, you had to remain seated for the rest of the match. Now they're saying it has to be a red card issued to the head coach or anybody on the bench. Then you'll have to remain seated for the duration of the match. So this doesn't mean you get a freebie yellow, people. Let's all still try to be civil to one another. But you only have to remain seated if you get a red unsporting card, you or any of your bench personnel. If a player on the court gets a red card, that won't involve you. This is just saying there's a new sub signal. What is it? We're just going to close our hands. We're going to do it with fists where we didn't have to before. It's something that we've always done. And so now they've decided that let's go ahead and put it in there. So that's what you're seeing there. Okay. This is a reminder for you all that 2023 is coming up. Basically what it's saying is, if you know that your appropriation is coming up for you to get new uniforms in your budget, in your school budget, and you have to keep those uniforms for 4 years, you're well within this 2023 season. As you'll notice here, the stripe of the number, that's the color of the number itself, cannot be the same as the underlying color of the jersey. So as you see in picture number A, that's illegal starting in 2023. If you're buying new uniforms this year, that's fine, but know that they're not going to be legal by 2023. You'll see that in B, it's legal. In C, it's legal. It's a white underground background. Then the stripe of the number is black, but it's outlined in blue. That's okay. Let's look at a couple of editorial changes. We only put a couple in here so that you coaches will know. It used to be you couldn't have anything on the sleeves of your shirt unless it was small, 2.5 by 4 inches. That's been changed. Now you're permitted to have the name of your school on down the sleeves. By name of the school or a mascot name can go down the sleeve of the shirt. Of course, this has to do with it. There's no size restriction, but it can't be disruptive to the event that we can't read numbers on the jersey. Let's say you've got a black jersey and neon yellow, mascot from your shoulder all the way down to your wrist. If they're moving their arms a lot, it's really distracting and we can't see the number, that's not going to work. So the one you see here in this picture is perfect. It's got on their Lady J's, takes up like the whole bicep area, that's fine. Just make sure it's not disruptive. And of course, you all have heard me say many times, if you need to know whether or not something works, just have your players put it across the gym on a bleacher and see how well you can see it. Exceptional subs, there's a priority on how we do the exceptional subs. So the first thing is, if exceptional sub is a girl who becomes sick and you've used everybody on your bench or not. So by a teammate who's never played, that's the first one who can go in a set. So it's a starter that doesn't normally come out at all. You can look on your bench. If you have someone that hasn't been in the game yet, they go in first. Understand, this may be the worst player on your team, but if she hasn't played and you have a player get injured and everybody's been in but her, you have to put her in. That's first. Second, well, that's not right. First is by the teammate they were replacing each other. They haven't played in the set. By any legal teammate on the bench, that excludes the libero. And last, third is the libero. Okay. Know that if you have an exceptional sub, that player cannot play for the remainder of that set. She can return if you or your medical professional there think that she's able to play in the next set, then you can have her go in again, but she can't play for the remainder of that set. Next. Point of emphasis. We're only bringing this up, so a couple things you coaches need to know. We always allow spontaneous reaction to a good play. Understand that that can only last for a certain amount of time. If when the server goes back and is getting ready to serve and the team is still up yelling and screaming, that's a little long. Try to calm them down and get them back on the bench. So they can't impede with the normal flow of the match, and they have to be done in an appropriate manner. Okay, no looking through the net and doing fist bumps at the other team or gotchas, none of that stuff. Let's still keep it nice and civil.
And on that note, please make sure you're social distancing
Yes.
for that as well, so that we don't have anybody bringing that to light that could jeopardize anything.
Right. And coaches, I suspect that's going to be your biggest challenge, especially since we're allowing the players to stand. You've got to make sure they're standing 6 feet apart. Officials don't want to be stopping a game to tell the coach, please get your girls separated. So you may have to get in the habit, coaches, of looking to your right or your left, wherever your girls are standing, or assign one of your assistant coaches to do it to make sure they are all staying separated. It's normal for them to want to bunch up and talk. So you've got to get them, try doing it at practice. Don't let them get close to each other.
Nora, speaking on that, it is not the official's job, and I should have mentioned this earlier. It is not the official job. They are not the mask wearing police.
That's right.
It is not the official's job. It is you as coaches that those kids need to be mask wearing and doing it appropriately, where the mask is over their nose and their mouth. So that needs to start in practice so that the officials don't have to worry about that. Also, too, that the celebrations that those kids have on the side of the court, and they do all those dances after an ace and everything else, that they need to be 6 feet apart. So whatever they're going to do, make sure they're separated and they're not coming together in a huddle after some of those types of plays.
Correct. And try to keep the cheering and the chanting down when they do chants. When there's an ace, they do a little cheer, those kinds of things. We're trying to keep that to a minimum this year for obvious reasons. Coaches, you have to make sure all of your people that are running the particular game are properly educated. Okay, so that we got to look at where you're going to put. Well, I guess we're not going to have cheerleaders at most of these since we don't have a crowd. There shouldn't really be. I'm thinking no announcers since we don't have parents there. But if you do, talk to your announcer if you happen to have one. So all of this I think is going to be difficult for your gym master in the event spectators are ever allowed back in. But they need to make sure they know what they can do and what they can't do. That's the job of the coach, to make sure that they're all aware of that. Let's talk about shorts. Okay, no logos around the band. There you go. Those are going to be illegal. And it's because if the name goes all the way around, logos on the waistband still have to be within rule 4.2, which is saying they can only be so large, so long, so 2.5 by 4.5. And so if you see here, if it goes all the way around the waistband, that has exceeded the size limit that NFHS has put on them. So make sure, I know a lot of you supply your players with their jersey, and they go out and they buy their own shorts. Coaches, police that. Have everybody bring in, before you have your first game, the shorts, be it 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pair, whatever they're going to have, prior to your season, your first game starting, so you can see, does everybody have legal shorts on? Okay. That's it. Those are basically the rule changes you need to be aware of. The referees are going to be making sure we're going to be talking to referees about protocol changes, and hopefully we'll have as smooth a season as we can have, given that it's all going to be changing as we go. Let's all do this together and let the kids play, and let's have some fun.
Sally, there's a question about locker rooms. Can you please clarify as per the current guidelines?
So currently, and it depends on the school that you're going to, locker rooms are able to be used very minimally, individually, no showers. They are for changing in small individual type scenarios. For volleyball, I really don't see the need to really use the locker rooms unless they're going to the restroom, but they cannot go in groups. And I would suggest that if you're find out from your athletic director how you guys are going to utilize lockers, or locker rooms. And I think you need to talk to the coach that your guests of, if you're visitors of, prior to going there, so you know what's going on with lockers. You may be on the bus and you get off the bus and you may not have bus, you may have to use have your uniform on and just go on the court because lockers will not be available. So have your athletic directors communicate that, and you guys communicate amongst yourself. But the governor has opened up that is for minimal individual use of lockers. So you will not be going in the lockers though with a team meeting or anything like that.
And during timeouts, we want you to go to the far corners, but you don't leave the playing area, coaches. Make sure you stay in the playing area 6 feet apart for your huddle. I know it's going to be difficult. Have everybody run so you can talk to them and try to keep them socially distanced. I know it's going to be difficult when you have 30, a minute, 60 seconds to get this key information out to them, but have them go to a corner someplace to the end of by the end line so they can be spread apart and you can talk to them as quickly as you can. But don't leave the court and go to the locker room during timeouts or in between sets.
So on one of the questions, yes, clapping is available. You guys, we're just talking about the droplets, okay? So the yelling, the screaming, that type of stuff. Anytime you exert some type of screaming, a yelling, that's why they don't allow singing right now, and the schools are trying to get that back. But that's when the droplets are coming out. So that's why that needs to be a minimal, and then the social distancing. But yeah, clap all you want. Clap all as much as you want.
Yeah.
And coaches, I would make sure you have hand sanitizer everywhere. Each kid should have hand sanitizer. You're sanitizing all the whole way through. So just make sure you are sanitizing everything.
So Sally, on one of the first slides, it said single games only shall be permitted. Does that mean if we travel to an away game that we can't play a double header and like play both matches in the same evening?
No, you can. You can. We were doing mostly the tournaments and not having a lot of people there, but it's you against another team. Yes, that's fine. Now, there are some athletic directors that are going to play one team maybe at 1 o'clock and another team in the area at 4 o'clock. That's fine. Just make sure that you don't have more than 2 teams in the area in the gym at one time.
So it's okay if we played at 3 and then to turn around and play the same team again at 5.
Correct. Yeah. And that's a great idea because it minimizes travel in a bus and get you 2 matches.
Does that exceed our 8 match limitations for any given day?
No, because they're 2 separate matches.
Both games.
Yeah, it's 2 separate matches, so it counts as 2 matches.
Okay.
Sally, I have a question about the mandatory 5-day practices. So at Goddard, we don't start, same thing with Roswell High, we don't start hybrid until February 22nd. Meaning we can't fully practice until March 8th. Am I going to have from March 8th 5 practices, or is it the 22nd?
No, you just need to, on March 8th, you need to decide if you're ready to play. If you want to play right away, play right away.
Okay.
You don't have to have 5 after the 8th. So you may want to play on the 10th or, you know, something like that. You might want to get a full practice in before you play, but you can play. That's up to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Sally, there's a question on here about what's the work crew supposed to be for the game? And I believe we did it where we had a scorer at the scorer's bench. We had the scorer and the libero tracker
And the book.
timer. And
Yeah.
the timer. That's all.
Yeah, so there's three that are at the scores table, all social distance. The visiting book is not at the scores table. They are away somewhere else. So it's just the 3 only at the scores table.
And the host schools are providing line judges. However, we are not using flags. If that was what was said in September, is that still the case?
That is correct.
Okay.
I had a question about the ball rotation on how, I guess, what would be a suggestion on that? Is it going to be like after every single dead ball, we should be rotating in a new ball? Or is it only like if it gets shanked off to the side, we then rotate it in the new ball? What is your recommendation on that?
Only if it gets shanked. Okay,
Right.
we can play just like a normal 3-ball rotation that you've seen at the state tournament. If it gets shanked and thrown out there, throw a new one in and then wipe the other one down. You do not have to change the balls after every point.
And what that will also help is when you have the ball that somebody left to go shag, they clean it, it gives it a little more time to dry. We have found that this alcohol on the leather is not great for the balls. So the more it can dry before you throw it back in to be played with, the better. So all schools, all of you guys need to make sure you have at least 2 balls for every team that is going to be playing, so that we can rotate through the balls and let them dry a little bit before we get them back out there again. 3 balls is great, but we'll take 2 at this point.
Okay, the question that's for you, Nora. How do we rotate on and off the court for subs? Everything has to be 6 feet social distancing, but Nora, go ahead and.
As we get closer to starting this, I believe Nate has a video. You're going to have one player. The player that's coming off the court will stand closest to the net. The player that will be subbing onto the court will be standing by the 10-foot line. They're both inside the sub zone, but they will be as far apart as they can be given the 6 feet of the substitution zone. Does everybody understand that? So the scorer can see the girl coming off. She's standing closest to the net. And the player that's going on will be standing by the 10-foot line. They should be able to read both numbers, but the kids are still separated.
Okay, any more questions about practices, volleyball? That I'm going to do a poll here real quick, but any more questions about anything?
Sally, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. In regards to you said that if a student athlete had COVID previously, and that's at any time, or is it within the time, like if that in June or sometime over before we start, is that when they have to identify it, or?
I would say yes. I would say after you have picked up the physicals, so you guys probably picked up physicals in August. So I would say after that point would be the time that you would need to make sure that form is being filled out about COVID.
And also, coaches, when you have your libero, when you're doing replacements, when your libero's going on and off the court, it's second nature for them to want to hit hands with the girl that they're replacing. You got to train them and hopefully start this at practice where they stay as they go on and off the court 6 feet apart. Okay. So that they're always social distancing, but the libero tracker hopefully will be able to tell they're exchanging. So help us out with that a little bit, coaches. When you see your libero going in and out, look over at the scores table and kind of see if the libero tracker is writing. They're used to seeing them go side by side, so it might take a while for them to understand you just did a replacement. There's going to be so many bodies standing up, they may miss that. So that may be one of the areas I see that the scores table may need some help with. And if you have 3 subs, I see on here, stack them along the sideline coming in. So they're still 6 feet apart, and that's how one of them should be almost at the end line, one in the middle, the one going in is at the 10-foot line. and then we'll just rotate them through and they'll step in again, maintaining that social distancing. We'll see them all going in and out. So if you have multiple subs going up, it may take a little longer, but we'll get them in, but they've got to still stay socially distanced. We'll stack them up along the sideline, and as the one goes in, the other one slides in, and we'll get them all in.
I saw the question about dig pink. Yes, just let us know if you're going to wear pink jerseys, and that's going to be your day. Of course, there's no spectators, but you may want to celebrate that with your team. So just let us know. So let Tammy know, so Tammy can make sure that the officials are aware that that is what you are going to do. Nate, I don't know. Nate, are you there still?
I am.
Okay, can you put up a poll real quick for me? I know we're running out of time, but if you could pull up a poll and basically, do you want to keep the last week for postseason? Do you want, you know, there's a lot, do you want the, yeah, something like that. Do you want the last week to be for postseason? Yes or no?
If there's no postseason, would we get to add games?
Probably.
Hey, and Sally, I have a question. So are we a go, like the governor said, she approves us, we're gonna get to play, or are we still gonna have to wait for her to say yes?
Well, every school has that 14-day period that they're gonna have to wait. So, but at this point, they sent over the guidelines yesterday. They know what our calendar is. And so as of right now, I would say we are a go until we're told otherwise. Okay, they sent the guidance over last night.
All right, Dana, you'll need to release the poll. It's not
Okay, and
allowed.
before people answer, Sally, can you clarify, this is just for head coaches at the varsity level?
Yeah, this is varsity level. The last week of the season, we were talking about an 8-team bracket postseason, quarters, semis, and finals. Somebody asked if we can poll the coaches on that. Like I said, we talked about it. The governors would still have to approve it for it to happen. Stacy just said, would we be able to add games? I don't know. I just kind of quickly said yes, but Stacy, I would answer the question that no, there would not be any extra games. I would answer it that way because we've had set the 12. So so basically, do you want a postseason week or not? So go ahead, Nate.
It won't allow me to launch the poll, Nate. I think, Tammy, are you able to hit?
Tammy, you're a co-host, so go to polling.
It says I'm logged in from another device.
Yeah, so Tammy, go to polling.
There she goes.
Yep, cool.
And Sally, teams are only playing if they are in hybrid or back full all the way, correct?
That is correct.
Sally, this is Coach Jackson from Mayfield. You know, going back to what Stacy asked, that's a valid question because it looks like, or it seems like every time we are about to start, something new comes up. So last season or last year when we were about to start on a Friday night, we got to say, no, you're not going on Monday. This new thing came out of the MPED that we have to stay in pods for another 14 days. And it was kind of last minute thing. So I'm skeptical. I'm still a little skeptical about if we're going to have a season or not, because a lot of things are coming up at the last minute. And that is very frustrating. And I know you are the middle person and then you're the messenger, but it's kind of frustrating that we are about to start on Monday to go supposedly 6:06, and then all of a sudden this thing comes up and then we got to stay in pods. So I think it's a valid question from Stacy. And I think we are skeptical. I am skeptical about having a season or not.
Okay, I'll respond once we finish the questioning here. I'll respond.
There are a lot of sub-varsity attendees and middle school as well. We're at 101 votes of 100.
Yeah, it should just be one varsity should be answering. Should be one per school.
So go ahead and stop that launch and relaunch.
Yeah, it should just be one per, let the varsity coach respond to this.
Do you want teams that are
Varsity
already
only.
opted out?
No, just let the varsity only. If you are planning to participate this year, then Let it be.
Sally, there's a question about APS with the unknown. Should we assume if they are and allow them to vote or not?
We can allow them to vote.
Okay.
They need to vote as if they were going to play.
Sally, quick clarification. So if we're saying no to the postseason, that would just give us that week to schedule more matches. I mean, within that 12.
I would not answer it that there would be more matches.
No, not more matches, more time frame.
More time frame to get your 12. It'd be more time frame to get your 12. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
We're at 95. I'm going to go ahead and end it. We have 98.
Okay, go ahead and release it then, Tammy.
Okay.
Okay, so keeping the last week for postseason is 65-35. All righty. Now let me go back to Coach Hernandez. Guys, let me tell you something. I know this has been frustrating, and I know everybody's skeptical, and I know you're afraid to get the hopes up of your kids, and you're afraid to get your hopes up, and you never know when the governor's going to turn around and do something. Yeah, I get it. I get it. We have been dealing with this for 11 months. I have been dealing with this every single day for 11 months. And you guys are athletes, you are coaches. We have set a goal that we are going to play. And through the ups and downs and through the heartaches and through everything that we go through in any given season, or as athletes, through the injuries, through the everything we go through in any given season, we always come out and we always do what's right for kids. You have always, volleyball more than anybody else has done what is right for kids. And right now, even though you're skeptical, and I understand that, every day I go to sleep and I keep thinking, are we going to play again? What are we going to do? What's going to come around tomorrow that's going to come across my desk? But if we continue to, if I would have 6 months ago listened to some athletic directors in December that wanted us to pull the plug on fall sports, and I give them a hard time because they gave me a dinner because I told them I told you so. If we would have pulled the plug in December like some of you wanted us to do, and I'm saying I know some of you wanted us to do, you just wanted us to say, you know what, we're not going to play, let's just go on with our lives and let's wait till next year. And here we are 1 week away and we're so close. And I get the skepticism and I get that, hey, something could be pulled from us, but it is not our time right now to stop. And it's not our time right now to show that to kids where we're doubtful. We have to show that brave face and know that we are going to get to play again. Where I think some of your focus needs to change, though, like I said at the beginning, is it's not ideal and it's not about the blue trophy. For all we know, the best two teams are going to get COVID 2 weeks to the end of the season. They're not even going to be able to play the tournament. We don't even know that. So it's not about that. It's about playing games. It's about the bus rides. It's about that team camaraderie. It's about the friendships. And it's about those seniors that may not be able to play volleyball ever again. And so, yes, I know it's hard, and I know it's hard to put on that brave face. I have to do it every single day. And sometimes I don't do very good at it. But I'm telling you right now is, through all the skepticism, and we're really worried, is it really going to happen? You know what? We can't continue to worry that. We just need to continue to go forward. And if another boulder is put in front of us, we will find some way to get over that boulder, just like we have done for the past 11 months. So this is your time right now to try to show the kids that you're supportive, that we are going to play, and we just need to stay as positive as we can. Even though in the back of our minds we're doubting, you are the leaders, okay? And the governor gave me the guidelines yesterday, last night. It wasn't like I got them 2 weeks ago. I got them last night. And we are adjusting to the one thing that was different than what we have done, but we will adjust and we can make this happen. We have to get started, because once we get started in a game, I don't think they'll pull the plug. I am so hopeful. I can't wait till cross country starts running on Saturday, the 27th, because there's no way she can look kids in the eye and pull the plug. So let's stay positive. It's not ideal. The only thing that's ideal is you get to work with your kids and they may be able to get to play the game that they love for a few weeks this season. That's the only thing that's ideal. So just continue to move forward. And Coach Hernandez, thank you for that, because yes, that's how a lot of people feel. And I appreciate you letting us know, because I sometimes feel that way too. But I'm not going to let them stop. We cannot let her, the governor, the PED, the parents angry because they can't see their kids. We cannot let any of that stop us for what's right for kids. And so we just have to keep marching on. So I appreciate you guys. And
Hey, Sally.
Yes,
Hey,
Stacy.
the thing is why I asked that question is because I just wanted to see if there was still a chance she could shut us down. I mean, I know there's always a chance, but I didn't know if we're still waiting. You're still waiting for her to say, yes, we can play, or if we are gonna, like, we can start playing.
Right now,
That's
it's
what I was wanting to know.
Right, and right now it's on the individual school not having case counts.
Okay.
So
Hey,
right now they have our calendar. They know everybody's trying to get in hybrid. They've given us the 14 days that we have to stay in pods for 14 days. And so they have given us all the guidelines, and that's where we are right now. And that was as of last night. So we are adjusting to the one guideline that we did not have, that we had to change. And we will see what happens. At this point, I've talked to them last night. I talked to them this morning, and not at one time did they say that we were not playing, because I told them we were doing the guidelines. But anything can happen, Stace. Anything can happen.
I agree. That's what I think Axel and I are like. We just want to know if we're still waiting on her or not. Like, we're all wanting to play, but I mean, that's what it is, like, where we were standing is like, okay, are we still a go, or we're still waiting on her? But
Guys,
yeah.
And Stacy, we will be waiting every single day till June 30th. We will be waiting to see if a plug is pulled. Every single day. She has the power. The governor has the power to close restaurants, to shut us down, to shut schools down. She has the power. So, but we can't control that. All we can control is if we do our safe practice COVID guidelines and we follow the governor's public health orders, then we are doing what we are asked to do. We are keeping safe. It's when your kids are going out, and this is one thing I should have remembered, and I know we got to get off here shortly, but you need to find maybe a code of conduct, just like you have no alcohol, no tobacco. Well, you need to maybe have a COVID code of conduct, and I've told our athletic directors that your kids sign, your parents sign, or you have a pact within your varsity that, you know what, we practice and we go home. We don't socialize and get into groups. We don't go over people's houses. We stay home and we do what's best for our team, and we stay and do all the governor's orders, and we make sure we're doing what's right and social distance and mask wear outside the school so that we can play. And that's something you need to talk to your kids about, because if COVID's going to come into your team, it's going to be from the outside. It's not going to be because of playing. It's going to be because of a parent or a kid was doing what they were not supposed to do outside of your school. So think about it that way. And you got to get your parents on board, your kids on board. And if we do things right, then she can't pull the plug. So it's on us now. We're going to probably start. And I say probably because we're still waiting for that 2-week period. Now it's how we're going to end. All right. So appreciate it, guys. And give your kids a little bit of a hug tonight. Give your family a hug. Make sure everybody's safe and happy. And that's all that matters. And your kids too on your team. So thanks for everything. And there's going to be bumps in the road, but we can do this together. And Tammy is here for you every second, and I'm right there behind her. So thank you guys for everything, and we'll talk later. Bye-bye.
Stay vigilant, people.